Guys, yes, week 14 fantasy football is here. Fantasy football playoffs are in 1 week, guys. So this is the playoff primer. We're looking at every single position. QB, tight end, wide receiver, running back, even defenses to be streaming, to be stashing, to be putting in your lineups. These are the guys you need in your lineups. And then at each position, guys, I'm going to give you one my guy, okay? One playoff my guy who I think is really going to be a difference maker. Let's begin here with all of our QBs. Now, essentially what I do here is I just look at Fantasy Pros strength of schedule tool and Fantasy Pros points allowed tool. Shout out Fantasy Pros, best in the business, okay, for this type of stuff. The matchups we want to be targeting at the QB position in the playoffs. Cowboys, they allow 25.2 fantasy points per game. That's absolutely insane. Next closest is the Giants, 21.2. And you get the Lions and the Bucks at 20.3 each. So those defenses, here are the players that play those defenses, okay? Jared Goff, right off the bat. He is playing Dallas in week 14. Now, this is a little bit before the playoffs, but yes, Dallas in week 14, guys, for Jared Goff on Thursday night. Even without no St. Brown, I think it's going to be a nice matchup. JJ McCarthy is a name that just keeps coming up. Now, he is god-awful, okay, but the playoff schedule is out of control. Spoiler alert, we might be talking about a couple of his receivers later. Look at this playoff schedule. Dallas in week 15, that works. Giants in week 16, that works. So those are the two best defenses, the two best matchups for QBs in a good way. And then you get Detroit. That is literally the third. So JJ McCarthy plays the top 3 worst defenses. Could you imagine if he was a capable quarterback? It would be out of control. With that being said, in Superflex, you have some QBs, right? Or in 2 QB that are going against Houston. Some of these awful matchups. I'll say it. You know, they're playing the Bills, they're playing the Chargers, whatever, the Browns. I will say it. I think you can start JJ McCarthy in some of these matchups at home. I really do believe that, okay? A little bit more rapid fire, right? As we go through these names, then I'll kind of reveal the my guy. Justin Herbert in the playoffs. 2 of the matchups are not great. You have Kansas City and Houston, but sandwiched there, week 16 is Dallas. Okay, so in single QB leagues, he might be dropped. Philly, Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, 3 of those matchups are not great. Jayden Daniels, guys, is a sneaky name, a very sneaky name. Probably won't be back week 14, but if he returns week 15, 2 of the 3 matchups are insane. You get the Giants in week 15. Here they are, 21.2, and then Dallas in week 17 at home. I think he's going to be back at home for that week 17 matchup. Could be insane. Could be absolute fireworks from Jayden Daniels, who has not had an amazing season due to injury and things like that, but, you know, still floating around 20 points on average, okay? Who do we have here? We have Geno Smith. Put him there for the week 17 matchup against the Giants. I wouldn't be playing Geno Smith. Like, for example, McCarthy versus Smith, it's night and day, like in a good way for McCarthy. I would not be playing Smith in any lineup. I've actually never seen a worse quarterback in my life. Smith does not have any mobility. He literally catches the ball, he stands there, and he gets sacked. He is the worst QB. And I will just digress for a second. He is the absolute worst QB I've ever seen play in my entire life. 2025 Geno Smith. I've never seen a worse player take the snap under center and attempt to do something with it in my entire 26 years of living on this earth. I've never seen it, honestly. It is embarrassing. All right, we'll move on. Matthew Stafford. Yeah, it's going to continue to get very good here. Week 15, Detroit. Here we go, over 20 points per game. Seattle is a bit tougher, but even them, they're kind of middle of the road here. And then Atlanta, who I think Atlanta is a very suspect defense. You don't see them show up here, really, in terms of best matchups, because in the beginning of the year, they were pretty good, but I don't think they're very good at all. So Matthew Stafford is looking pretty good. Aaron Rodgers, I think he has a couple nice matchups. You get the Detroit one in week 16. All right. Kirk Cousins, if we need streamers, Tampa Bay in week 15. I do like the Tampa Bay matchup as well. It's very similar to the Lions. And then Bryce Young. Again, we're just rapid firing before the My Guy reveal. Bryce Young here. Tampa Bay in week 16 at home. I imagine he has a pretty good game considering, very good weeks 11 through 13. At San Fran was pretty tough, but just lit up the Rams 22.5 points. We have Tua, who's been turning it on a little bit. Actually, when I look at the fantasy points, it's not as good, to be honest, as it looks in real life. He does not look that bad in real life right now, but I guess they're kind of keeping the ball out of his hands. So I stand corrected a little bit with that. But the matchups are pretty good. Week 16, Cincinnati, you see him here, over 20 points. And then week 17, Tampa Bay, who's a top 4 matchup. So those two are pretty interesting, to be honest. Now, guys, revealing my guy at the QB position for playoffs? Yes, it is Jaxson Dart. What a world that we live in where weeks 4 through 13, average fantasy points. Okay, let's just go take a look. Weeks 4 through 13 among QBs, and we will go to average points. Now, mind you, he missed week 11 and 12 with an injury, but ranks right here. QB4 on average, 22.1 fantasy points. Mahomes, Allen, and Dak are the only 3 better QBs. I'm seeing him dropped in a ton of leagues. He was literally just dropped in a league of mine. It's insane. He has the bye in week 14. That's probably why. He didn't look great versus New England. That's probably why. But boys, look at this matchup. Look at these playoff matchups. Week 15, you get Washington. We know about them. Okay, 20.1 fantasy points per game. Top 6 or top 5 at the position in terms of easiest matchup. Then you get the Raiders, who they're a bit tougher because you have Max Crosby. The Raiders are week 17. They're a bit tougher because you have Max Crosby, but again, pretty fraudulent in my opinion. And then the Vikings, they just blitz a lot, but it's going to lead to more scrambles. Scrambles are high fantasy point plays, typically. All right. I mean, if you scramble for 5 yards, that's the same thing as a 12.5 yard completion in most leagues. So Jaxson Dart, we've seen him, right? At Philly, 19.4 points. At Denver, he almost had 30 points. Philly again in week 6, 23.6. San Fran at home, right? Similar level to these defenses who'll play in the playoffs, 27 points. At Chicago, they're not very good actually, but 26 points. So there was a stretch there, week 6 through 10, where he had over 23 fantasy points in 4 of those 5 games. Not great against New England. Tough start with the special teams kind of return they had, constantly playing from behind. So I'm in on Jaxson Dart out of the bye. He is my guy among QBs for the fantasy football playoffs. Now let's go ahead and let us move along, okay? To the running backs. Let us move along to the running back position. Now, we're going to do something pretty similar here. And right away, excuse me, the main guy that pops off the page, the main man himself, is Derrick Henry. Now, this is mostly because of that week 15 matchup at Cincinnati. I expect Lamar to be healthier. I expect the Ravens to do more in that game. We just saw them play here in week 13. Henry had a nice game, got in the end zone, 17.4 points, but the last 3 games, guys, going back to week 11, 20.2, 22.8, 17.4. Okay, so averaging essentially 20 points per game there. The Bengals allow 29.3 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That's the most among any single team. All right. Then you get New England at home. It's going to be an amazing game. Again, I keep saying the New England defense is very sus. You hear that they're good. They look good on paper. They have played no one this year, genuinely. They've played no one this year. I can take the time to go look at the exact running backs they've played, the exact teams. There's this graphic going around about their 10 straight wins right now, and there's not many good teams on it. So New England at home, I really like that matchup. And then week 17 at Green Bay is not amazing. If we're keeping it a buck, we look at the Green Bay defense, and apparently they're actually worse than New England's defense, who's allowing the least per game, but I don't care. All right, Green Bay defense is still allowing, let's see, 17.5 points per game to the position, which is technically a top third worst matchup. It's a bad matchup technically, so is the New England one, but I'm really interested in the Cincinnati one. I'm really interested in the Bengals, who are going to have to, the Ravens, who are going to have to turn it on down the stretch here. So I like Cincinnati. I like New England. I like a lot of Derrick Henry down the stretch. All right. Now, this man needs to simply get the respect he deserves. If you have Achane, buckle up. Just buckle up. You get the Jets in week 14, okay, 23 points per game, their top 5 matchup. Pittsburgh, whatever. But then Cincinnati at home. We know about them, almost 30 points per game. And then Tampa Bay, who is a bit of a pass funnel defense, but has been getting cooked on the ground lately. 21.6 points per game allowed. So, yeah, a lot to like here for Achane, who, if we redrafted today, would be a top 6 player, to be honest. Now, if the Cardinals ever activate Trey Benson, okay, he also has the Cincinnati matchup in the finals. And then Atlanta in week 16 at home. You have Houston in week 15 and then the Rams in week 14. So 14 and 15, not so great. This might actually be saying more about the likes of Bam Knight, Michael Carter, whoever the active running back, the active starting running back is for the Cardinals. In weeks 16 and 17, I believe you can play them. I believe you will get great numbers against Atlanta and Cincinnati. Atlanta Falcons allowing 21.7 points to the position per game. Again, guys, the defense is so sus, man. We saw what JT did. We see every week, man. It's just the best player on the other team. Atlanta has no answer. you would imagine when I was watching that JT game, you would think that this guy, Jeff Ulbrich, who he might even be out by now, I think he was actually fired or whatever. You would imagine, guys, he had never heard of Jonathan Taylor. It was the most insane thing. I mean, OT, the clock hit OT, bang, JT, 20 straight plays in the end zone again, third straight touchdown. Like, dude, just stack the box, man. You know, like, again, I've never played a down of football in my life, but my goodness gracious. Anyway, we love to target Atlanta, any position versus Atlanta. QB, wide receiver, tight end, running back, special team, literally anything. If it says versus Atlanta, put them in your lineup. Needed to clear my breath after that rant. Okay, Chris Rodriguez has been getting some traction. So we have 12 plus opportunities in 3 of the last 4 games. I like this playoff schedule a lot. A lot of people will point to Philly and be like, nah, that's not very good. Well, actually, Philly allowing the 7th most points, 22 per game to the running back position. Dallas, great matchup all around. All right. They're allowing over 20 points to the position per game. And then the Giants, top 2 in week 15. This is a great matchup, especially if the Commanders, right, if they kind of go away from Jayden Daniels, even though I mentioned him as a guy I like, right? If we see this where they have nothing to play for, whatever, they're just going to give Chris Rodriguez the rock, like a lot. And these are great matchups. So Chris Rodriguez is a sleeper, a guy I really like. All right, moving on. We do have Aaron Jones for a lot of the same reasons as we like JJ McCarthy. The matchups are very good other than Detroit week 17. We look at the Detroit defense, and they're all the way down here. Essentially the best defense versus the run. 14.5 points allowed per game. That's the least to the position. Tied with the Pats, but again, you know my feelings on them. Okay? Dallas in week 15, excellent. Giants in week 16, excellent. If it's Mason, if it's Xavier Scott, whoever the starter is, if there's 2 guys, you can play either one of them. All right? Chase Brown must be mentioned. He's been doing pretty well lately. 15 plus points here, and every game since week 8. That's 5 straight games. He gets Buffalo. They're easy to attack on the ground, hard through the air. Baltimore, I'm fine with that. Miami, they're getting better, but again, I'm fine with that when you have Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense. And then Arizona, who kind of a suspect run defense. Yeah, you see him all the way up here, 8th most points allowed to the position, right? And finally, guys, I will reveal my guy for the fantasy football playoffs at the running back position, and it is none other than Ashton Jeanty, the greatest college running back of all time, next to Barry Sanders. Some consider him even better than Barry Sanders in college, was robbed of the Heisman Trophy. This man is essentially the greatest running back prospect of all time. God forbid, okay, we give him the better part of a season to activate for us down the stretch. Rookie running backs down the stretch. Now, week 14 at Denver, am I hype to put him in my lineup? Not really, but last time against Denver, 24 opportunities. Since that game, the last 3 games, guys, 8 plus targets in every single game. 8 plus targets. He's catching 6, 8, 6. Now, on the ground, the yards per carry, the offensive line is comprised of people who make pumpkin spice lattes at Starbucks, right? So they go to their day job, right? And then they suit up for the Raiders at night. That is the offensive line. Literally you and me, boys. We can play offensive line for this team. It is the worst offensive line. Between this offensive line and Geno Smith, I'm actually shocked at myself that Ashton Jeanty is my guy. That is how highly I view him. But allow us to look at the matchups, okay? Now, week 16 at Houston is ass. Unfortunately, yeah, we're going to need like 8 targets to be relevant, but it is borderline matchup proof when you're getting 8 targets, okay? The past 2 games, 17 carries, 15 carries, 8 targets each. So 23 plus opportunities. They're going to keep giving him the rock. Denver at home, we'll see. I mean, he actually scored 15 points in week 10 against them. Whatever. Let's move to the playoffs. Philly, I love the matchup. Like I said, 7th best matchup for running backs. They're going to be at Philly. Jeanty will be developed. They're going to lean on Jeanty. All right. We saw the new OC in week 13, 23 opportunities. In week 16 at Houston, I don't love it, right? But what if it's garbage time? What if Houston's up 14, 21 points in the 4th quarter and it's just Jeanty season for a couple drives? Could happen. I'm not saying the Houston matchup is great. I'm not salivating at that. But then, guys, week 17 at home versus the Giants, 26 points per game allowed to the position. This is when Jeanty, excuse me, this is when Jeanty in week 17 is going to win you your league. If you've held him, if you have him, if you've managed to make him your RB2 through some trades, Jeanty at home, week 17, enjoy the show. He is my guy. Now, if you're sitting here, you're saying this dude's crazy, whatever, what are these picks? Listen, bro, I'm not going to come on here and tell you that Christian McCaffrey or Jahmyr Gibbs is my guy. And wait till you hear who it is at the wide receiver position. Just wait. In fact, I'll just reveal it before we talk about any of the names. Yeah, it is Justin Jefferson. This is my guy for the fantasy football playoffs. At the wide receiver position. What a time it is to be alive where I can come on the show and tell you that I believe in Justin Jefferson, the greatest wide receiver of all time through his first 3, dare I say 4 seasons in the league. And you can look at me and watch this video and tell me I'm nuts. What a time to be alive. I will be there for that. I will be there, and I am here right now doing so. Look at these matchups, boys. Week 15 at Dallas. Actually, let's just start in Week 14. Commanders at home. Top 5 matchup. 30.4 points per game to the position. Dallas, arguably the worst defense versus receivers ever. 34.1 points per game. 2 receivers. That's in Week 15. Who's next? Giants. Top 4 matchup. 30.6 points to the position. 17, Detroit. Where do they rank? Second best matchup. Every single one of his next 4 matchups, the remaining weeks, are top 5 best matchups. Right? I'll just give you a newsflash, boys. The last matchups we've seen have not been good. At Seattle, that sucks. Max Brosmer might be worse than Geno Smith. 12, at Green Bay. Nothing's happening, guys. When Micah Parsons, every single play is breathing down JJ McCarthy's neck, literally sacking him, standing over him, spitting in his face, right? That is not an area to succeed. Week 11, Chicago, 9 targets. If you remember that game, Justin Jefferson actually dropped a couple deep touchdowns. He actually dropped them. He slipped on a couple routes, leading to some picks. Week 10, 12 targets. I'll take it. Week 9, Detroit, 9 targets, actually got in the end zone. His only touchdown with JJ McCarthy. Who's he playing in Week 17? Detroit at home. I'm in. I am in. And it begins this week, Week 14, with JJ McCarthy at QB. Let's go through some rapid fire, okay? Lad McConkey. We're really just going to be targeting the Dallas matchup. Here are the guys that are playing Dallas. I'm not going to go into too much depth. These are the guys that play Dallas. Lad McConkey in Week 16. The playoff schedule is not amazing for the Chargers wide receivers, but you have Dallas in there. Same can be said for Keenan. Same can be said for QJ. You look at Terry McLaurin, guys. Dallas in Week 17. Last night comes out. Finally healthy. 14 targets, 7 catches for a touchdown. Pretty insane against Denver. You have the Giants in Week 15. Then you have Dallas in Week 17. So same can be said for Debo. I do like the Commanders receivers in the playoffs. I do like all of the Commanders in the playoffs. I really do. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. They play Detroit in Week 15. We are now on Detroit watch. Okay, 31.2 points per game allowed to opposing receivers. That is the second most behind the Cowboys. All right, the Steelers. Great schedule rest of season, other than that Cleveland matchup in Week 17. But Miami and Detroit, we like that for receivers. These guys, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, can be streamed, in my opinion, assuming Rodgers is healthy, which he's not. But if he's looking good in Week 14, you can probably stream him in the playoffs versus Detroit. Have to mention Jerry Jeudy. I'm just obligated to mention the matchup here against the Bears in Week 15. They're the 3rd worst defense. We're now on Bears watch. We have Jayden Reed and Christian Watson. They play the Bears in Week 16, okay? We continue to move along. Jauan Jennings, they play the Bears at home. Ricky Pearsall can be dropped. Jennings is the wide receiver 1. They play the Bears at home in Week 17 in the finals. And then finally, guys, the main men here, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. It's a little rough on the ground for Javonte, for example, but these boys should absolutely go insane. Detroit this week, Thursday night. Let's get it. Week 15, Minnesota. Not great, but okay, at home. Chargers, Week 16. Again, they're very good versus wide receivers, but there's 2 of these guys. They're essentially matchup proof. And then you have Washington in the finals. You're at Washington. They are allowing over 30 points per game here. 6th best, 5th best matchup for wide receivers. Real quick, for the tight end position, what are we targeting? We're targeting the Cincinnati matchup. The Cincinnati matchup, guys. Guys, the Cincinnati matchup. 19.4 points per game to opposing tight ends this season. Essentially the best matchup all time for tight ends. The next closest is allowing 13.8. So again, Bengals allowing 19.4 per game to the position. Jacksonville is allowing 13.8. That's insane. That is literally almost a 6-point difference. That's out of control. That is almost a 60% increase from the next closest. Nuts. So who do we have? Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. Now, these two combined for over 20 fantasy points versus the Bengals. I think if either is available, you have Isaiah Likely only rostered in 11% of leagues at Cincinnati Week 15. Get him in the lineup. He can be absolutely streamed. Finally, guys, Trey McBride, before we reveal the my guy at the position, Trey McBride, what more needs to be said? This guy's an absolute league winner, a preseason my guy. I posted on Twitter my preseason my guys, my draft season my guys. They're looking pretty good. One of them's not looking great, but the other three are looking pretty good. Trey McBride is one of those guys. Absolute cheat code with Brissett at QB. The Cardinals are not activating Kyler yet. Kyler will not be back, right? I really don't think before week 18, if they even let him play. You have Atlanta in week 16. You have Cincinnati in week 17. You know how I feel about Atlanta. And finally, guys, my guy for the playoffs at the tight end position. Trying to get a little creative here, admittedly, but I do believe it is Darren Waller. Now, he has 4 healthy games on the season, okay? Let's just look at his first 3. I should even say he has 2 games, weeks 5 and 6, where he was in a full allotment of snaps, around 60%. Even week 4, his first game back from injury, he wasn't really fully allotted. And then week 13, again, he's ramping up. So once these snaps return to 60%, right, whatever it is, dare I say they push 70% like they were in week 6, this is going to be a top 5, top 6 tight end. Weeks 4 through 6, he was actually tight end 4, I believe, off the top of my head, weeks 4 through 6. Let me just look in half PPR. There he is, tight end 4, 13.6 points per game. Got injured in week 7. Back in week 13, he was missed in the end zone. He had an end zone look. But again, week 16 at Cincinnati at home, the best matchup for tight ends. Week 17, Tampa Bay, pass funnel defense. They're going to have to score. I love those matchups. Pittsburgh, even they are not very good versus the tight end off the top of my head. There they are, 12.8 points per game. That's a top 5, top 6 matchup. So Darren Waller is my guy for the tight end position. And finally, guys, we're looking at defenses, okay? Now, you're probably shocked to see the Cowboys defense on the screen, but the Vikings are the best matchup for opposing defenses right now. Even though I believe in Jefferson, even though I mentioned JJ McCarthy as a potential stream, Jefferson can have a 20-point game, and the defense that the Vikings are playing can also have a 20-point game. That world exists, all right? So who plays the Vikings? Dallas plays them at home in week 15. Then the Giants play them at home, and then the Lions go to Minnesota to play them. So those are that's the Minnesota watch. What I want for playoffs from you guys is a combination of 2, dare I say 3 defenses. We don't need to be stashing a million players anymore. We need one option off the bench maybe, right? Who plays the Titans? That is the next best matchup. San Fran plays them at home in week 15. The Chiefs play them at Tennessee week 16, and then week 17, you have the Saints at Tennessee. I want to stop on the Saints for 1 second. You could get a multi-week knockout here for a defense. Week 16, they play the Jets at home. The Jets have been getting better lately, but still, down here as the 10th best matchup. So technically a DST1 matchup, if you will, for the Saints in week 16. Then at Tennessee in week 17, that's a top 2 matchup. So at that point, you're really just looking to fill in that week 15 spot. That week 15 spot, dare I say, go with the Eagles, who have Vegas. So if you have Eagles and Saints, you are set for the entirety of playoffs. The Eagles can be played a really great defense against Vegas week 15. And then the Texans, again, Vegas in week 16. So the Texans, you can play them. If you have the Texans, just play them. Arizona, Las Vegas, and the Chargers. But guys, that's going to do it for the playoff primer. It was a lot of info, a lot of rapid fire info. Hope you enjoyed. Good luck in playoffs. All right, goodbye.